The biggest lie you've ever been told is to be realistic. The people you call delusional today are usually the same people you end up calling successful tomorrow. Isn't that strange? Nobody questions confidence after someone wins. They only question it before they've done anything. Think about that. The moment you tell people you're going to build something big, they'll tell you to be realistic. The moment you say you're going to become extraordinary, they'll tell you to lower your expectations. Not because they know your future, but because they're judging your future using the version of you they're looking at today. That's the trap. People expect your future to make sense based on your present. It doesn't work like that. Every person who completely changed their life had to believe something that didn't match their reality yet. That's the part people call delusion. I call it vision. Because if you can only believe in what's already in front of you, you'll never create anything bigger than the life you're already living. Here's what nobody tells you about being realistic. It doesn't protect your future, it protects your comfort. The moment you decide your future has to make sense today, you've already reduced it to the size of your current circumstances. You start making decisions that fit the life you have instead of the life you want. You stop reaching because your present quietly convinces you that it's the best you'll ever do. That's how big dreams die. Not through failure, but through logic that arrives too early. Reality has a way of making itself look permanent when it's anything but. Your situation today isn't your final destination, yet most people treat it like a life sentence. They look at their bank account, their job, their background, their failures, and they begin to believe those things have the authority to decide their future. They don't. They're only describing where you are, not where you're capable of going. The moment you mistake your current reality for your permanent identity, you've already surrendered to a life that hasn't even finished unfolding. That's why I believe a little delusion is necessary. Not the kind that ignores reality, but the kind that refuses to be imprisoned by it. Every extraordinary person had to believe in a future that looked completely disconnected from their present. While everyone else was looking at what was, they were committed to what could be. That's the difference. One person lets reality write the story. The other decides to write a different ending. Here's what people never understand about big dreams. They expect your belief to grow after your results. But that's impossible. Results don't create belief. Belief creates the decisions that eventually produce the results. If you wait until your life looks successful before you start thinking like a successful person, you've already lost years waiting for permission that was never coming. That's why being delusional isn't about pretending you've already made it. It's about refusing to let your current reality become the loudest voice in your life. Because reality has an opinion on everything. It'll tell you you're too late, too inexperienced, too unknown, too young, too old, too broke, too ordinary. And if you listen long enough, you'll eventually mistake those opinions for facts. The truth is, reality only tells you where you are. It has absolutely nothing to say about where you can go. The saddest thing you'll ever witness isn't someone failing. It's someone convincing themselves they were never capable before they even tried. They reject opportunities they'll never apply for. They abandon dreams they'll never chase. They shrink their ambitions until they fit neatly inside a life that feels safe. Then they call it being sensible. But there's nothing sensible about giving up on a life you never gave a real chance. People laugh at the word delusional because they assume it means living in fantasy. It doesn't. Sometimes being delusional simply means protecting your vision from people who can only see your circumstances. It means believing in possibilities that don't yet have evidence. It means waking up every day committed to a future that exists nowhere except in your mind. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. Because every reality you admire today once existed only in someone's imagination. Before anyone else believed it, one person had to. Here's the irony no one talks about. The very people telling you to be realistic are usually living lives they never imagined for themselves. They aren't speaking from experience, they're speaking from comfort. They mistake familiarity for wisdom, and because they never gave themselves permission to dream beyond what was familiar, they struggle to understand why you would. That's why you have to be careful who you allow to define what's possible. Someone else's limits should never become your blueprint. You'll notice something else too. The world has a strange habit of celebrating people only after they've succeeded. Before that, they're called unrealistic. They're questioned, doubted, laughed at, not because their vision is impossible, but because it hasn't happened yet. People are far more comfortable believing in proof than believing in potential. That's why they'll applaud the outcome while forgetting they criticized the process that created it. The hardest part about being delusional isn't believing in your dream. It's continuing to believe when nothing around you agrees with it, when the results are invisible, when the progress is slow, when the people closest to you start asking whether it's time to give up. That's the moment most people abandon their vision, not because it stopped being possible, but because it stopped being popular. They exchange conviction for approval, and without realizing it, they trade the life they wanted for the life everyone else expected them to live. Maybe that's the real meaning of being delusional. It's having the courage to stay loyal to a future that only you can see. It's refusing to let doubt become louder than your conviction. It's waking up every day and acting in alignment with a life that doesn't exist yet, trusting that one day your reality will catch up to the picture you've been carrying in your mind all along. Because every extraordinary life is built twice, first in the imagination and then in reality. The people we admire simply refuse to abandon the first before they had the chance to build the second. Maybe the problem was never that you were too delusional. Maybe the problem was that you stopped being delusional the moment people doubted you. Somewhere along the way, you traded your vision for approval. You started asking other people if your dream made sense instead of asking yourself whether it was still worth chasing. The moment you started needing everyone else to understand your future before you believed in it, you handed them the power to decide how far your life could go. The truth is, every extraordinary life begins with a decision that looks unreasonable. Nobody gets permission to become exceptional. Nobody receives a certificate saying, "You're now qualified to dream bigger." You simply decide. You decide that your current circumstances don't get to define your future. You decide that your limitations aren't permanent. You decide that the version of yourself standing here today isn't the final version you'll become. That's the kind of delusion that changes lives, not because it's disconnected from reality, but because it refuses to be controlled by it. One day, the same people who questioned your vision may admire the life you built. They'll call you confident. They'll call you disciplined. They'll call you successful. What they'll forget is that before any of those words ever described you, there was another word they used first: delusional. So if believing in your future before anyone else does makes you delusional, then be delusional. If refusing to let your current reality decide the rest of your life makes you delusional, then be delusional. If having the courage to see possibilities where everyone else only sees limitations makes you delusional, then wear the word with pride. Because sometimes the people who look the most delusional in the beginning are simply the first to see a future that everyone else will only understand later.